Hello, hello, hello. Okay, let's see if I can get this transmission out in the time frame I have allotted. And if not, I'll just add on or do it over. We'll see. You may never see this. Something I want to talk about, really, really important and really critical, and I find that it's coming up at this time. Um, just seeing it a lot in people, and I want to deepen the conversation about it because I think sometimes we intellectually understand something and we go, yeah, 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 that doesn't apply to me. Or we go, yeah, 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 I understand it. But we haven't kind of allowed it to sink in and kind of hit us in the chest, right? Hit us in a way that's really we can grasp it. It's tangible through the experience, right? Experiential learning, if you will. So the guides came to me in a float session, self deprivation. Wait, self deprivation? No, sensory deprivation tank. If you're familiar with floating, highly recommend it. But I won't go on a tangent about that now, for time's sake. And I was, this is when spirit starts talking to me a lot, and I'll get a lot of downloads and transmissions, and I'll just hope that my consciousness can remember it when I'm out. But they came through and they said, don't dismiss the bad thoughts, right? So on spiritual journeys, this is actually for everybody. Let me just say that. But one of the things I've noticed the most, and this is people who, they seem to be doing all the right things. Maybe they're a twin flame, maybe they're on a twin flame journey, maybe they're not a twin flame, but they're a light worker and they do the meditation and they do their yoga, they do their journaling, they do all the things, excuse me. They do all the things that they are supposed to do on a journey. And they seem to be maybe stagnant, or you as a friend or a person in their life, partner, family member, maybe you work with them, you just happen to notice that they have a lot of blind spots, and maybe they don't always see themselves super clearly. And maybe in certain circumstances with certain people or certain things occurring around them, they act differently. Maybe they're not their full selves all the time, or they kind of, switch it up. And depending on how long you've been in this person's life, you can kind of observe that there are certain places that they're kind of stagnated. That's not a word. That they're at a standstill, right? Maybe they're growing in a lot of ways. And the thing that our egos want to do is our egos want to automatically blame. They're on the journey, they're doing well, check mark, green light, or they're not on the journey, they're not doing well. They need to fix it, right? It's always about let's fix the bad. And what my guides came through to show me why this occurs is actually connected to that same ego kind of evaluation, where we automatically, all of us do it. I don't care how spiritual you are, how enlightened you are, how deep on a twin flame path you are. We all still do this automatically. And then hopefully if we're being the witness, if we're being the watcher, we can notice it, we can correct it, and we can go, okay, let me rewrite that, right? But we're constantly wanting to label things. We're constantly wanting to label and put them in categories for our brain, okay? And so the bad thoughts, this is what I see people that I just explained do, is they may have a bad thought about themselves. They may notice, you know what, I'm actually showing up pretty selfishly in my relationships right now. And they may go, no, don't be mean to yourself, because my spiritual coaches, my spiritual teachers have told me to be kind to myself, to be self-loving, to be forgiving. And so you immediately eject that thought, right? It comes into your consciousness and you go, I'm just paranoid. I'm just tired. I'm just having a bad day. And you go, I don't even want to look at that. So anything about yourself that may be quote unquote negative, okay, or bad, you go, I don't want to look at that. You go, nope, 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 nope. And I'm using that as an example, but if you have any habits, okay, things in your life that you don't have full control over, you're not in full sovereignty over, things that you feel like you need. And again, it's tricky because a lot of these things could be blind spots. So another way that you could work with this is, are there any repeating things that you hear people say to you about you that you don't like and you immediately dismiss, and you just say, they're projecting, I don't want to hear it. Nope, that's a bad thought. And I'm on a spiritual journey. They're not on a spiritual journey. Therefore, I know better. Therefore, I'm going to stay in love and positivity, right? It could also show up as, what situations do you find yourself in quite a lot? What energies do you find yourself in quite a lot that you don't necessarily like, and you like to label bad or judgment? And maybe a relationship comes to the same place every time, and then you just end it because you go, I don't want to deal with the bad, right? You go, okay, that person's a bad influence for me, or that person's this, or that person, right? And there's always this blame game right? There's always this shift in responsibility. Okay. And this is what the guides were telling me, were coming in and saying. They were like, you need to look at the bad thoughts that you have. You need to be willing to say, have I been an asshole? In whatever, fill in the blank. Do I have a habit of taking and not giving very much? Do I have a habit of always being really harsh in my tone or my words? Or do I get really defensive? Do I get really reactionary? Do I have a habit of shutting down and pushing someone away? Do I have a habit of manipulating people? And there's always going to be, especially if you're on a twin flame journey or any spiritual path, the consciousness is always going to be trying to reach you. Your higher self is always going to be trying to reach you, right? So it's not like there's nobody on the planet that can, well, whatever, I'm not going to go into an extreme like that, but there's very few of us that can go, oh no, I didn't know that person was bad for me. Like, I didn't know that this wasn't a healthy relationship. You had the signs, you had the signals, you pushed it away, you pushed it under the rug because it was a bad thought and you wanted to stay in love and light. So yes, we are talking about spiritual bypass, which I've explained on this channel and I've explained in the Patreon group so many times, right? We've talked about it, but this is what I mean. I want to go deeper with it. I want to give you like tangible things that you can focus on that might help you kind of transmute spiritual bypass, because I still see a lot of people doing this. And it is 100% going to stand in the way of your journey. So if you feel like you have blocks and you can't get to the next place and there's things that are coming up, yeah, we can look at entities. Yeah, we can look at, divine timing. We can look at, okay, if you're on a twin flame path, if you're on a twin flame path, you're working with another soul, or not another soul, another person, another human. So you're kind of, you're trying to do this together. So yeah, sometimes you have to speed up and slow down, right? Sometimes it's just life arriving to you. But there's also this other thing, and it's how much in spiritual bypass are you in? How willing are you to look at the darkness and the shadow within yourself and to not make an excuse for it, to hold yourself in accountability and responsibility, to make amends, to really, really be in your heart. If somebody confronts you, right, and they're coming at you, and maybe you don't see it at the moment and you don't really agree, but for you to really be like, you know what, I'm going to take that to heart, and I'm going to give me, how much time you need. Give me a minute to sit with that. Do you really sit in that? Do you be in that present moment? Do you allow that to permeate? Do you allow it to hit you and go, whew? And you can obviously come to the conclusion, when you really give it that presence and that space, you could come to the conclusion like, you know what? No, I think this is just one opinion. But the funny thing is life will always show it up or bring it back to you if you dismiss something you shouldn't have, because everything is a mirror and you are always creating your reality and your experience with the people and the circumstances. So it's funny if you dismiss it once and then it comes back around and another person tells you something similarly, or you have a similar energy or a similar conflict, something comes up in your life and it's similar. Chances are you maybe weren't ready at the time to face it, and that's okay, right? Yes, we're still, preaching ultimate self-love and forgiveness. And I'll get to that in a second, the difference. But you do need to take accountability. You do need to take responsibility. You do need to be willing to fall on your sword. You do need to be willing to say you're deeply sorry when you've wronged someone, when you've hurt someone, or when you've acted out of alignment, when you've projected, when you've acted like a little child, when you've had temper tantrums, when you've, been really selfish and self-involved, when you've, been a user, right? There's so much narcissism in our society and culture. And I don't mean the clinical diagnostic. You guys, it's a Mercury retrograde when I record this, so words are going to be weird. Whatever. I think you all get what I'm saying. I don't mean somebody who's been diagnosed. But there's just narcissism in general, and we've all been afflicted. I feel like the guides are just messing with me now. Let me take some coffee. We've all experienced that. Okay. And we've all had to come into ownership and responsibility on it. I've been doing this work for myself where I've been looking back on my journey in like my early 20s. And especially that phase where I was extremely selfish and I hurt so many people. And it was all learning, right? And I think previously to this point of deep accountability, responsibility, maturity, I always looked at it like that was the divine using me. I kind of bypassed it a little bit. Like I was like, I needed to learn those experiences so I could go and teach them. I needed to be in really dark scenarios and shadowy places. And so, of course, my way to cope was to use drugs, or my way to cope was to do this, or my way to cope was to do, right. And that it's not that none of that is true. That could all very well be very, very true. And I'm sure there's multidimensionality. So that is true. But what is also true is that I was a dick, right? And I hurt people. Okay. I hurt myself. Right? I hurt my family. I hurt my friends. I lost partners. I lost lovers because of how I acted. Right. And so there's this deep reckoning and understanding, like, and the spirit has been kind of working with me on the, like, everything happens for a reason thing. And it's like, when you take full responsibility and ownership and accountability of your life, and you are co-creator and you are sovereign, that changes a little bit, that shifts a little bit. Right? Because if everything is a direct experience of you, and you are a mirror and you are creating everything around you, well, your divine timing could have been pushed back because you were being a little twat. You know what I mean? It could have been. That's what I'm really having to take accountability. I'm like, why is this journey so hard for me? Right? Why does it feel like this has been so monotonous and so long and so tedious and so difficult to get, to get somewhere? There's the ego, right? I got to get somewhere. Why does it feel so hard? And like, what they're showing me is, there's cause and effect. There's always balance in the universe, right? That's one of the universal laws. So yeah, you may be a divine being. You may be a very old, ancient soul here to be here in service, but you, just like everyone else, succumb to this density, right? You succumb to the trials and tribulations and the tests and the free will choices. And yeah, maybe you're making really aligned with your higher self choices now, but you weren't always. And so there's a cause and effect to that, right? So it's really taking responsibility and ownership. And I still see people on spiritual communities, twin flames, doing that in their journey now, where they just, and I get the reasoning, because you're working on self-love, you're working on healing, and you just want to love yourself, and you just want to, like, hold yourself. But here's the difference. Self-love is not loving yourself when you're getting it right and you're doing all the right things, and you can, like, pat yourself on the back and be like, yeah, I was a good person today, I was kind to people. Or, it's not, that's not self-love. Actually, that's conditional love, which is what's been modeled for most of us. It's like the ability to really love ourselves and admire ourselves and be grateful and have all these good things to say about ourselves when things are going really well, or when we're feeling really good about ourselves, and we're getting that confidence boost from somewhere. Maybe it's a relationship in our life. Maybe we're doing really well at work, whatever it is. Maybe there's something in our life. And I know most of you here are, like, on spiritual journeys. So it's probably something in your spiritual journey where maybe you're getting a lot of signs and synchronicities. Maybe you're starting to experience ease. Maybe you're experiencing enlightenment. Maybe you're feeling presence and, like, deep unconditional love because your heart chakra is opening. Great, beautiful. But there's still a part of you, a shadow part of you, that can be a little twat, right? Don't let yourself off the hook of that, but love your inner twat, right? Love that part of you. That is true unconditional love. It's being able to look back at those cringy moments of your past that make you go, oof, I don't even want to think about this. I don't want to look at it. Or in your day, right? Maybe you, like, freaked out in traffic and had a little road rage moment. Or maybe you were a jerk to somebody at the store because you were impatient, or I don't know, you felt slighted, whatever, your little inner child got triggered, whatever it is. Unconditionally love that part of yourself. That's really, really true love. Okay. And I know it's so much easier to love ourselves when we're doing well, and it's easier to acknowledge it, but it's like, part of the love is being able to look at it and face it and really hold it in your heart, to listen to what people are saying to you about you. And noticing another good trick in this, I'm just looking at my notes really quick to make sure I hit all the points. Another trick is, like, especially those of us who are on, like, really deep spiritual journeys where it's kind of happening with or without us. Sometimes it feels like we're being dragged by a car, we're, like, being dragged along. And sometimes it feels like we're willingly, like, working with the divine. So, and I know we all kind of go between those two extremes on these spiritual journeys. And I think what happens is sometimes you let yourself off the hook because you think, well, I'm a twin flame, or I'm a starseed, or whatever. I have this whole guidance team that I can just be dragged along. It's fine. Like, I don't really have to take ownership and responsibility. I don't really have to look at that because it'll sort itself out anyways. Like if I'm experiencing something I don't like, an energy that doesn't feel good, or I'm experiencing a block, it's like, oh, I don't have to think about that because it'll work itself out. It's like yes and no. Yes and no. And I'm sure we've all heard the quote, like, you take, what is it? You take 2 steps and the universe will come and help you take 5 steps or something. You get the general principle. So we've all kind of heard that. We've all, but there's this real Saturn influence is actually what I'm feeling. It's like a very, and I don't know where the astrology is per se. So those of you that are the astrology enthusiasts, I'm sure maybe you can connect this to something happening in astrology right now. But the guys are really adamant that we have to take accountability and responsibility. We have to make amends. We have to own our shit, first with ourselves and then with others. And no, you don't get to skip that step, right? You do not get to skip that step. And sometimes it's really about reclaiming your responsibility as a sovereign being that empowers you to make those changes and to make those moves. Okay. The stagnancy, the things not really moving, life still feeling kind of heavy or not going the way you want. That is all because there's an avoidance. There's an avoidance of some aspect of yourself. And it's really, truly not fully loving or embracing or accepting yourself, right? Because if you're not fully embracing or accepting or loving yourself, it's going to be really hard for you to go and maybe have hard conversations about these types of matters where you're taking responsibility, where you're basically asking for feedback. You're like, okay, like, how did I make you feel? Let me know. I want to hear it, even though that's going to be really painful. You need that self-love to be able to hold yourself in that moment and to still love yourself and to not want to get reactionary, to not want to, shut down maybe and pull away and run away, or to not want to kind of fight back. You're going to need that self-love because that's what's going to hold you. That's what's going to hold you into intimacy. That's what's going to allow you to be vulnerable, is because you're really loving yourself. You're not just loving the good. You're accepting, you're owning, you're looking at the bad, right? And even in that assessment of good and bad, it starts to unify and you start to see it all as the full, right? And another way to kind of notice when you're really doing this, or when you're really in that alignment, that unity with your higher self, is when you, I'm just going to use this as an example, but there could be so many different things. Like maybe you have a habit you're trying to break, okay? And you break it. And then you feel really, really bad about it. That energy of feeling bad is not something to dismiss. It's not something to dismiss like, oh, I'm being mean to myself. I'm being hard on myself. No, you're feeling bad because you broke your own word. That's why you're feeling bad. It's a beautiful, perfect system. It's the divine design. It's just perfect. It's pure perfection. Your guides, your team, your higher self, the benevolent spiritual beings are always assisting you. Your twin is assisting you. You both are assisting each other to hold you guys high, to hold each other accountable. So that bad feeling that you might feel after you do something or you say something, maybe you talk badly about somebody behind their back, maybe you come off a little harsh, maybe you run away from something because you're kind of fearful, like that feeling of like, oof, icky. Oh, you feel kind of bad, or like you wake up the next day and you think back all the things that happened the other day and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. And our immediate gut reaction is to just dismiss it. Just nope, don't want to look at that. Nope, I'm going to forgive myself, right? We go, I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to let myself off the hook. That's spiritual bypass, right? And I'm not saying forgiving yourself, you shouldn't forgive yourself, that you shouldn't love yourself. I'm saying you have to hold the moment. You have to be in the moment. And there's so many of us who are unwilling to be present, right? Even still being on a twin flame journey or a spiritual journey, we're really unwilling to sit and be present, to get quiet with ourselves, to sit with the uncomfortable. And I think that's why so many of you, and I talk to a lot of you in Patreon, that's why so many of you avoid meditation, right? And I know you say it's hard, and I get it. You're right. Of course it's hard, because you're sitting down to yourself, and what's coming up? All the gunk. But you know what happens when you sit there and you stay with yourself for longer and you stretch it longer each time, and you have a disciplined, responsible practice? It gets quieter. It gets quieter, right? You maybe experience 1% more of peace, 1% more of that calm, okay? But it's not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be good. It's not meant to be the feel-good, spiritual, like mushy, like synchronicities, butterflies and rainbows. No. This is what's missing from most spiritual practices within our world right now. This is what's missing from the spiritual community on social media. This is what's missing. The Saturn influence, the responsibility, right? The daddy influence, right? Being really fucking real with yourselves, okay? Being really, really real with yourselves and not skittering away. Now, I often hold the position, especially with those of you that I work with in one-on-one coaching containers and Patreon, where I'm going off of your energy and what you need. So if you need that tough love, my guides will show me. If you need that sweet kind of affirming, so many of us were so messed up by the world. We've been so punched and beaten up and bloodied by the world that when we first arrived at these spiritual journeys, we really just need to be affirmed. We really just need people to love us and to tell us you're not crazy. You're not alone. You know, you didn't deserve that. That wasn't okay. But I feel with this eclipse season, what's being ushered in is this new wave of really, really getting real. I know I taught a while back about kind of the Luciferian stream of consciousness versus more kind of AI stream of consciousness, those sort of dark influences in our world, if you will. And this would kind of be connected to that, those teachings in a way. And the Luciferian stream being very, we just want it to feel good all the time, right? We just want to feel good all the time. And when it's not feeling good, we're like, uh-oh, something's wrong. I'm not doing something right. Let me fix it. 11:11 on my clock. No, you're not meant to fix it. There's nothing to fix. It's not about fixing it. And there's very few, but there's some incredible spiritual teachers teaching about this right now. Lori Ladd being one that comes to mind. It's not about fixing it. It's about being in it, being present with yourself in the all. Do you feel like shit? Do you have anxiety? Are you stressing out? Are you in absolute pain? Are you so confused and you can't see the forest through the trees? Do you have no idea where to go next? Great. Be in it. Don't push that aside because it's uncomfortable and it's bad. And your ego goes, uh-oh, here's a problem. Let me go in and fix it. And look, I also, in holding the all and the multidimensionality and all the consciousnesses, don't get mad at your ego either, because your ego is just doing what it's designed to do. Hold that ego. Hold it in love. Notice it. When you sit down to meditate and your thoughts go a mile a minute and you're just like, and you're going crazy. First off, there's tools. You can do breath work, you can do movement meditation, you can do walking, you can do swimming, you can do yoga. There's many at this point, y'all know you can get past your, resistances. I know you can do it if you want it, if you want to choose to take responsibility, right? But when you sit down and all that stuff goes a mile a minute, it's information. What a gift. What a gift to know like kind of where you're at. And all that is required of you is to hold it in love, hold all of it. And that's part of that practice of becoming the watcher, becoming the witness. All you need to do is notice all that's in there. That's all you got to do. You may not like some of the things that are in there. You may really like some of the things that are in there. It's kind of like, I don't know why they're giving me this analogy. This is maybe not the best, but I'm going to go with it. I'm not going to label it bad. It's kind of like, let's say you're like a teacher, right? And you have students and you have kids, like I'm thinking like young kids, like elementary school, right? And maybe you have some favorite students because you just have a bond with them. Maybe there's a soul connection, maybe it just feels good. There's just something really nice. And then maybe you have some of those students that are just a little bit like, you're just like, oh, what is Albert going to do today? Like as you're preparing for your day. I have a friend who's a teacher, so I know a little bit what that's like, but, and it's harder to accept. It's harder. There's just something there. But you know what? When you're holding the all and you're being present and you're allowing and you're not labeling it good or bad, you realize that Albert has so many gifts for you, so much to teach you. And you can almost find an even deeper love in a way for some, not to compare loves, but right. You can really find when you really surrender and you move towards it and you hold it, you can really just get so much deeper in self-love and in unconditional love and deepening your understanding and your enlightenment. It's really, really freaking beautiful if you allow it. So I think that's it. I think I managed and I have 15 minutes to spare before our live. We've been doing a lot of lives in the Patreon. So if you're interested in community and we're doing a lot over there right now. So that's why I've been gone. It's like I've been giving all my attention and presence to that community. Okay. I'm gonna end it here. I hope this helps. I hope this makes sense. I do understand that I'm doing this during a Mercury retrograde. So, maybe rewatch it later if it doesn't make any sense, but I feel like it will. I feel like you'll feel it in some aspect. And if you're feeling that really needing to like assert yourself even with yourself, or setting boundaries and being like kind of, I don't know, if you're feeling all that right now, like trust it, like own that, right? There's a reason for that. Don't push it away. Don't push it under the rug and say spirit will work that out for me, right? I think sometimes there's some of you brought this question up for me. It's like this dependency on spirit, dependency on the guides, dependency like, on the spiritual world. And this is I would say the only like potential where you can have that negative dependency is when you kind of are like, here's my problem, and it's very infantile, like fix it for me, right? And they're like, nope, we did that in the beginning to help you, to build your trust, to build your resilience, to build your, or not resilience, to build your knowing. But now it's time to build your resilience. Now you got to take responsibility. You got to grow up. You have to mature, right? You have to mature. Spiritual maturity. Very few do it. And like people that are really teaching with a lot of platform, like with big platforms and a lot going on, and they're not, the codes that they're holding are not in no spiritual responsibility or maturity at all. And so it's transferring, right? And then we're in this like, I don't know, kind of woozy place here where our boundaries are all being violated and we're not even, anywho, tangents. Okay. I'm sending you all a lot of love. And if you'd like to work with me more, and yeah, that information is down below. My Calendly, you can book a session, how you feel guided. There's the Patreon community, but that's really where I'm called to show up at this time. So I always will listen to the guidance to come on here when I'm supposed to, but that's where I've been. So that's where you can find me. Sending you all a lot of love. Thank you so much for all your support. It really, really means a lot.